Once you've finished trimming the padding all the way around the table, then we're ready to install the canvas tabletop. You can purchase canvas from Rolly Company and then use an indelible marker to grid the table, or you can purchase a pre-printed table grid like the one I have here. Now this product is printed by Adaptive Textiles, and it was first designed by Anita Boatsma, who had the idea that it would be so much easier if our table grid was already printed on the canvas before it was applied. Let's go through the instructions. Step 1, secure one end. It says to unroll your pre-printed table grid and align to the table as we have here. With one staple, secure the center zero line to the underside of the wooden frame at one end of the table. Here's the zero line, and we can secure this by folding the edge over here at this end of the table. Now we'll have an easier time of this with a pneumatic staple gun, so let's bring that out. We'll start with a center staple right here. Now I'm using 1/2-inch long staples loaded in the pneumatic gun. Want to stretch tightly, pull under the table maybe about 2 inches, and staple in. And then every 2 or 3 inches to either side, all the way out to the corner. And then we'll do the same moving along this side. Before we move on, we'll just want to check the width of the grid just to make sure you haven't stretched something out when you've placed it on the table. So starting over at one end, zero is sitting right at 30 inches and all the way to 60. It looks good. We're ready to move on to step 2. Step 2 requires that we stretch the table grid to length. So I'll roll it out right to the end of the table. And with the metal tape measure, I'll line up the edge to the zero marking and see how far we must stretch by the end of the table. Well, already here at 70 inches, we're about a 1/4 inch off in length. And to get all the way to the end of the table, about a 1/2 inch. It is common for your table grid to be a 1/2 inch or even 1 inch too short. That's part of the design. It's not a mistake. It would force you to stretch the table cover slightly so that you get a nice tight fit to your table grid when it's installed. So a handy tool that we can use to stretch to length is this upholsterer's web stretching tool. And this is easily found at any upholstery supply company. It's also available here at the CHF Academy. If you don't have one and you don't want to purchase one just for your table cover, then I'm sure your neighboring upholstery shop would loan you one for the day. So moving down to the end of the table, I do have to stretch this grid about a 1/2 inch to be perfectly in line. So I'll just roll up the edge, grab it in the teeth, and there, as you can see how easy it is to pull the 1/2 inch extra out of the length of the table. Now, I'm going to want to staple at this point, so I'm going to let this go for a while and grab the pneumatic staple gun again and staple along this side. Now that we have the pneumatic staple gun, we can stretch and secure at the same time. So I'll attach this again. Stretch the 1/2 inch. There we go. Hold it and secure under the table. Now before I continue stretching and continue moving staples to either side, I need to make sure that that zero marking is truly in the center of the width. So I'm just going to check from this side, and it is at the 30-inch mark. And if I check from this side, it should also be, if all our previous steps were correct, and in fact it is. So I can feel very secure that this is the proper placement for that center staple. Now we're going to work to one corner and then work to the other corner, stretching as we go. As I stretch the width, as I stretch the length, I want to be careful that I'm not pulling in the sides at the same time, so I can just work it out to the corners. Now it's getting a little easier. And before I put the final staple in the corner, I'm going to go down to that 0 mark and just double check that I've stretched enough. Let me check the 0 mark. Yes, right at 0. And down to this end, 130. Let's move to the right. I can work the grid out to the corner. Use the stretching tool. There we go. And before I put too many staples in, I'm going to check the length on this side. Down to the 0 mark, up to 130. Let's check, make sure the 0 is at 0. And yes, it is. Now I can fill in staples, again wanting them to be about 2 to 3 inches apart. So stretch tightly between and continue down. And I'll add more staples in the other direction as well. Now we can move on to the width of the table.